The way we're at with the situation with Diaz is that it's some conflicting reports today. There's variations of the same thing, basically saying that he wants to move to Bayern Munich and that he's told Bayern Munich that he'd like to move there. This from the likes of Christian Falk. We've got reports from Florian Plettenberg as well, who say Bayern aren't giving up on Diaz. Max Erbel remains on the case, but is also assessing other options. Any agreement between Diaz and Bayern is denied by all sides last week. A call was made to Liverpool and they were told he's not for sale. So I don't know what's happening around Diaz and his situation. It feels like he wants out based off the reports. But again, we haven't heard from the man yet. What we do know is that Lewis has said he's happy at Liverpool. He said that, yes, he's been speaking to other clubs. Spoke about this, I think, a few weeks ago in the window. Yeah, I don't know where we're at with it, but my view has always been the same on these things. If you don't want to be at this football club, then leave, and we'll find a way to do so. But again, like I said, we need to hear from the player himself. I'm certainly not going to be throwing my weight in behind reports coming from Germany that are very one-sided reports, of course, to try and help out a German football club. So for me, I certainly have some doubts around the whole situation. But if there is anybody who doesn't want to be at Liverpool Football Club, particularly with where this club is at in their development under Arne Slot and with the backing they've had in the window, I don't care. Fuck off. Leave. If that's what you want. That's kind of where my head's at with it. Like we said, we seen the report a few weeks ago from, I think it was the Echo, who said that despite reports in the media, Luis Diaz earns about £140,000 per week at Liverpool, according to information put to them from the club. So again, I don't really have time for sympathy in these regards. If Konate wants to run down his deal and join Real Madrid, well, you know my stance on that, and it hasn't changed. My stance is pretty clear. If you don't want to be at this football club, then sit on the bench for the year and don't go to the World Cup. But we can't be held to ransom by anybody. I think Liverpool have lost Trent in a very heated situation, and we can't go through that again. So if Konate wants to commit, I'm sure everybody will welcome him at the football club for a few more years. If he wants to leave, so be it. But again, running down a contract to leave for free, Liverpool have to look after our own interests. And Navarro said get rid of the pair of them. Look, I don't want to go in on the players because we don't know what's happening with them. All that we know right now is that there's no extension for either of them for whatever reason, whether it be them, whether it be the club, whether it be the agents, whatever it might be. We don't know. But we do know that we have our own business to conduct and that we have to look after our own interests. So if Konate has given his word to Real Madrid, and by the way, I would certainly take with a massive pinch of salt anything that comes out of the computer, the mouth, or the keyboard of Sasha Cavalieri, who I think has had an absolute joke of a window from a journalistic point of view and has been wrong on almost everything that I've seen and piggybacked on other people's stuff. Yeah, I'm going to need to hear from the club or, somebody on the English side of this if Konate has given that word to Real Madrid. I'm certainly not going to be going in on Ibu yet because it's just media speculation at the minute. But my stance is the same. If he does want to leave, or if anybody wants to leave this football club, I think Liverpool should try to facilitate that in a way that obviously is the best for the football club. And anything after that, look, I just don't think any of us have time for this nonsense anymore. If you don't want to be here, you know where the door is. If you want to be here, we'll continue on playing for the greatest football club on the planet. Michael Dunstan said, totally agree with you, Craig. If players don't want to be here, that they can go and let's get the right money for them. Yeah, look, this certainly isn't in reaction to anything that's happened with Diogo and his brother. This is my long-term stance on anybody around Liverpool Football Club. I look at this with very Liverpool tinted specs, of course, because I'm a Liverpool fan and I think Liverpool's the greatest football club on the planet. And, as a Liverpool fan, I think you should crawl on broken glass to come and play for Liverpool Football Club. You should be tripping over yourself to come and play for the football club. And when you're here, why would you want to leave? Ibrahima Konate, just as an example, I can't understand why he wouldn't want to stay here if indeed he doesn't. So yeah, I don't really have time for sympathy in these scenarios with players. Don't want to be here, fair enough, but the club has to move on. Jimbo said, give the guys the wages they deserve, offer it to them, and if they don't... Well, you see, Jimbo, this is a very weird sentiment, bud, because who dictates what they deserve? You, me, their agents, the club? So let's talk about Diaz for a second. So 140,000 quid a week is what he's on. That's good enough for me. And he's 2 years to go. So the club aren't in any position where they need to move him on. So the narrative of him not getting paid enough has to go out the window now that we know he's getting in and around £140,000 a week. So the sympathy for me in that regard dries up a bit. And I'll also, again, gloves off, I'm getting a bit of a pain in me hoop listening to Diaz being linked with Bayern and Barca and Saudi and everywhere else when he's under contract and 2 years to go at the club. And I don't like him saying he's speaking with other clubs. It feels to me, as a fan, like he wants to angle for a move away because he's not happy with the situation at Liverpool. But Liverpool, they have 2 years on his deal, and Liverpool need to look after Liverpool. So with regards to Konate, again, it's not like he's on a very poor wage, but clearly Liverpool have a number, and I'm not saying that number is right or wrong. I don't know what that number is, but they have a number, and they've given him an offer. And the offer, according to reports, because again, we're not inside this conversation, seems to be one that he would like a higher base salary. And Liverpool's offer, again, based off what we're hearing, is one that his wages go up with regards to triggers, bonuses, add-ons, which is not uncommon for the way our football club is run. I, for what it's worth, have a gut feeling that Edwards and Hughes just think Konate is not going to be the thing that makes or breaks the squad. I don't think they would view him as a Salah, as an Alisson, as a Virgil. So I think Liverpool are kind of relaxed in that regard. Now, the situation that we find ourselves in is still a very difficult one because Konate is going into the last year, and what I don't want as a fan, and Jimbo, this is just my perspective, mate, because that's all I can give you. I don't want another season of reading every week about Madrid being confident. Madrid have the word. Madrid said the player only wants them. I don't want another season of having to look at that week after week like we've just had with Trent in that situation. So I hope Liverpool nip it in the bud and play hardball with Konate. Here's our offer. We're not improving it. If you don't like that offer, that's understandable. That's your prerogative. But we ain't improving it. So we aren't letting you take us for mugs. And we aren't letting you run down your contract and leave for free. And if you want to force that issue, well, then we're going to stick you on the bench for the season. And that World Cup in America, you won't be going to it because Didier Deschamps won't be picking you because you won't be playing. And that sounds really snotty. And that sounds really harsh. But I know where my heart lies in this. And that's always with the club and their best interest. So that's the way I view it.